Helping people grow and achieve their potential can be hugely rewarding. However, working with people is incredibly hard. And when things go wrong, the impact can be quite dramatic. In this video, I'll share 5 common coaching mistakes that managers make, and I'll show you how to avoid them. Coaching is commonly associated with giving advice, directing, and teaching people. Therefore, it's a common mistake that's made is that you coach at someone rather than with someone. When you make this mistake, you do most of the talking and your team member does most of the listening. A frustrating outcome from this type of conversation is that often you'll be upset that the person hasn't followed your advice, maybe they weren't listening to you, and also your team member will be frustrated that they've come to you with a problem and you've given them advice that maybe they don't find helpful. The solution? Think of coaching as a two-way conversation. In fact, it's likely that your team member will do most of the talking and you'll do most of the listening. This is a sign there's a healthy conversation where you're asking questions to help your team member unlock their thinking, and they're thinking through their problem and starting to see it in a new way. Once managers start to explore coaching skills, they'll find that one of the key skills of coaching is asking questions. One of the most common mistakes is that managers will start to hide their advice as questions. What would happen if you did this? How could you go about doing it in this way? So they'll use questions, but really what they're doing is giving advice and they're disguising it as a question. These are also known as questions that lead the witness. These types of questions can be problematic because it leaves your team member thinking, are they giving me some advice? Are they asking me a question? I'm not really sure what I should do in this situation. And often they'll end up giving you an answer based upon what they think you want rather than what they really think and feel. The solution? Learn to ask coaching questions that are free from advice. This means asking questions that are open-ended, that are clear and concise, and are asked with some curiosity. In this video, I share 7 coaching questions that you can use to coach with your team. When managers start to develop these coaching questions, it's easy for them to assume that advice is not good in any case. That's not true. Advice and sharing your experience can be hugely valuable for team members at the right time. My suggestion to you is that when you have advice, simply frame it like this. I have some advice which might help you in this situation. Would you like to hear it? So actually offering your advice as sort of a question allows the other person to accept or decline it. Another coaching mistake is asking closed questions. Do you agree? Did you try this? Was this helpful? These questions typically result in one-word answers. They don't invite any deeper thinking about the goal or challenge. The solution? Great coaching questions are typically open-ended. How could you go about this? What could you try? When did this start becoming an issue for you? These open-ended questions invite more curiosity and invite deeper thinking from the person that you're working with. For many managers, their day job involves analysing problems, and it's common to think that coaching is about problem solving too. This problem solving tendency can be a common mistake that managers make when coaching. When a team member comes to them with a challenge, it's straight away that their brain may start to kick into problem solving mode. You'll think about all the different ways the problem can be solved, and typically what happens is you'll end up giving advice to your team member. Here's how I would think about the problem, and here's how I'd go about solving it. When you just focus on the problem solving aspect of it, it's common you'll miss the other part of the story. There's often a lot of emotion and feeling involved when someone's faced with a challenge or wants to pursue a goal. When you just focus on analysing the problem, it's typical that you'll miss this side of the story. Perhaps it might be some unhelpful beliefs that's holding back your team member from taking action. For example, it might be something around imposter syndrome, or maybe your team member is fearful in taking action. It's common that these more emotive sides of the problem are holding people back from achieving their goal. In this video, I share a technique called fear setting that allows you to work with your team member on fears that might be holding them back from taking some action. Once you start to develop coaching skills and start to see some results, it's easy to start overusing this style of management. Your team members might start to dread your one-on-ones if all you do is ask questions and you never offer up any kind of advice. It's also common for managers with a strong coaching preference to think that giving advice is a bad thing. That's not the case. Advice and sharing experience can be very helpful in certain situations. The key for great managers is they know when to coach. In this video, I share a little model that allows you to work out when coaching may or may not be helpful. A simple question you can also ask when your team member comes to you for help or advice is to simply ask them, "How can I help?" This gives you an indicator of what your team member's looking from you and how you might be able to help them in that situation. The best managers have an ability to adopt different styles of management depending on what the situation might call for. And don't forget to hit subscribe so that you get all the best insights to help you, your team, and organization improve.